registered for this webinar. Okay, so just one quick thing here. And I think we are going to be good to go here. All right, everyone. So welcome to today's session on the Nautilus experience. My name is Christopher Lowe, and I am joined on the call today with a couple of the colleagues from our faculty team, Ruth Gabe in New Hampshire and Gabe down in Tampa, Florida. We may have another one of our colleagues, our team members, joining shortly who's at the airport. So it's all good to have a team of 6 people who are going to be leading this voyage. And you know, when we do sessions like this, and when we get the full team in the room, that's great. If not, we will go with the handful of people that we have. But excited to be in dialogue with you and sharing with you about a voyage we're going to be doing this coming summer off the coast of Norway called the Nautilus experience. And this will be the second time we have embarked on this adventure of really taking our learning out into nature, into a dynamic environment, and putting ourselves a little bit to the test in an environment that maybe we're unfamiliar with, and really seeing how our leadership and our teams really come to life in real situations. And I'll be sharing a little bit more about the origins of the program, what we did the last journey, what we're hoping to do on this journey as we go through today's session. But this is really an informational session to share with you about this trip and voyage. If you choose to come along the journey with us, we'll share some information about that. But if you're just interested to learn about this kind of learning program, that's also maybe for those of you just interested in this type of experience. We've had some previous webinars and podcasts from the first voyage, so if you are interested to learn a bit more about that, you can do so. I'm also going to invite you to feel free to use the chat window throughout the session. Myself, Ruth, Gabe, I see Carissa Bubb, who's also on the program faculty, has joined as well. We can respond to your questions throughout and comments, and hope to make this a fun hour for you, and pausing in your day wherever you are in the world. If it's late or early, we'll welcome you there. I'm going to start off just briefly with a short video from a little 2-minute video from the first experience, just to start off this webinar with a bit of an experience of what it's like to be on the ship, and give you a little bird's eye view into what the first program was like. So I'm actually going to toggle over to a YouTube video to do that. I didn't get my ducks in a row to let's see here. Actually, I'm going to share a different screen. I think it's this one. Here we go. Okay, the sound should come through on this. Let me just double check that to make sure, because that would ruin it if I didn't do it. Yeah, I got it right. All right, cool. All right, so let's check this out.
Normally, I don't jump and make quick decisions like this. But when I saw the Nautilus experience, I threw caution to the wind and signed up immediately. What was the Nautilus experience at the end for me? It was the fulfillment of a dream. And this dream has many, many, many levels. A dream that has many levels and that invited me to explore the dimensions of being a full human being, including my relationship with nature. It was an immense learning adventure where we took a deep dive into expanding our range as leaders. It brings people to use not only the head, but actually the hands, the heart, the groin, the gut, where we experience dynamic stages of becoming a team and explore the exciting world of team coaching. The secret is that you can't hide who you are on the boat. Who you are comes to the surface, and that creates an amazing opportunity for transformation. I'm walking away with the motivation to live my life more boldly, and with the confidence that I have a new learning community that will support my leadership and team coaching journey in the future. I'm so glad that I literally threw caution to the wind and signed up for this life-changing experience.
Just a little video to start off our session today. This was one of our participants, Portuguese colleague, Luis Borges, who lives in the Netherlands now. And he was gracious to come on and do a video with us. We have a couple of other videos from the trip, which you can check out, and lots of photos from the first voyage if you're interested to check out some more content. But let's talk a little bit about, we're going to be answering a few of the questions today, classic ones. YouTube video start. Sorry about that. It's been my story of technology today. I've been on a handful of calls with clients and webinars and using all different technologies, and it fails without fail, it fails momentarily. So maybe that's the operator or the technology or the both. But anyways, let's start off. We're going to talk a little bit about the who, the why, and the what today, and the how of this voyage. And I'm super excited. We have a handful of our program faculty on the call today. We have Ruth Gabe, who's here. I'm going to give brief introductions to the team members who are here and the team members who aren't. But if we went through everybody's introduction, I think we would blow most of our time. So I'm going to just do this quickly. So on the call, I'm going to start from left to right. Bim Harder, he's one of the trip co-leaders, not joining us today, but he was the original visionary of this project a few years ago and had some contacts he lives in the Netherlands with the sailing community, and he was aware of a program on a tall ship that would bring children and youth across the Atlantic over the Christmas holiday for a month from Europe to the Caribbean. And the teachers and students would go on the ship together, and they would have classes in the morning, and then in the afternoon they would learn sailing and leadership and team building. And his daughter went on this, and it fundamentally transformed her as a 14-year-old. And so when he started to explore what are we doing for adults around this, he noticed that there were some programs like that, but a real gap for leaders and coaches and team coaches. And so approached me and another one of our colleagues, Eric Kohner, to design that. So Pim has a rich background in the education sector, trained in a number of different team coaching approaches and coaching approaches. So a real rich experienced guy, has some experience sailing. So he's going to be with me sort of helping to hold this whole program together. We have joining us for the first time on the ship, Ruth Gabe. She's a faculty member and director at Team Diagnostics, a faculty member of this program. Ruth is a world-class scholar, researcher, and professor, and expert on teams, author of the book Senior Leadership Teams, What It Takes to Make Them Great, amongst many other publications. And super excited. Ruth approached Pim and I about coming onto the trip, and is super excited to have you joining us, Ruth, on this, and we'll get your voice in a little bit. Peter Hawkins, who's on a plane to Australia right now, being the intrepid guy that he is, he's always somewhere in the air. It was impossible to get all six of us on the same call. So I have a message from Peter on a slide coming up I'll share with you. But many of you probably know Peter. He's the creator of the systemic team coaching and the 5 disciplines model, speaker, writer, author, professor, and general jet setter around the world in the area of teams and team coaching. We have Gabe Abella, faculty member on the program based out of Tampa. He is an organizational coach with JP Morgan and is a Lean Kanban University accredited trainer with more than 20 years of experience working with large enterprise implementations using Agile and Lean methods and others. So great to have somebody from that community joining us on the trip. We also have Chris Abub joining us. I think she's in an airport today or on her way to an airport. And she's a faculty member, executive coach, and facilitator and founder of BubWorks. And rich expertise in leadership, in teams, and communication in organizations. And myself, Christopher Lowe, I was on the original and helped to create the original Nautilus experience. And I'm doing a number of things at the Team Coaching Zone, also senior partner at Team Diagnostics along with Ruth, and generally just passionate about teams and partially responsible for this trip. Partially, I'll say. So just put that out there. So I want to talk a little bit about the why of this voyage, and I'm going to be inviting Ruth and Gabe and Carissa to share a bit about why doing this trip. So you saw just now that the who, so there are 6 of us who will be the program faculty. We are searching for 20 participants. We have 7 signed up so far. We have 13 slots left on the ship. 20 participants and then with the 6 of us, plus there's going to be a captain and crew of 14. So there'll be a total of 40 people on the ship during this voyage. But let's start off maybe why. So why do a voyage like this? We're going to be 10 days on this 70-meter long tall ship. And you may be asking the question of why would you want to do something like this, and what would be in it for you if you were to join? or just generally interested. So I think the first one is, really looking at alternative spaces for us to learn about, experiment with teams and teaming, and really exploring being a team of teams. And I think for many of us, our experiences, while many of us have experience working with teams, we've been on teams, we go through classroom-based certifications, maybe we're in nice hotels and resorts, but oftentimes the environments that we learn in, aside from when we're in practice with real teams, are pretty static, stable, very safe and secure, very controlled environments where maybe nature exists outside the window and we can go and take a walk in the woods or whatever from time to time. But we wanted to really, raise the bar a little bit and start to challenge ourselves as people in this field to be in environments which really put us to the test more, where maybe we're uncomfortable, maybe we're facilitating in an environment that we're not used to, that's moving. You plan to do something on the deck, but the weather isn't good, so you need to pivot in the moment and do something in the galley or in the hold of the ship. So we wanted to kind of take advantage of that and put ourselves in a more dynamic environment, but where on a ship we can have a whole social system of 40 people really engaged in a learning experience together. And again, not just during prescribed times of the day from 9 to 5, but when you're with people 24/7, other kinds of dynamics and learning opportunities emerge. So that's part of the rationale behind this. But just to say, a big part of this is bringing expertise, not only the program faculty, but of the participants, but trying to push the boundaries more, experimenting, really truly trying things out for the first time, maybe that we've never done before, and really learning and experimenting and learning, seeing if we can learn fast and put all those great principles and mantras that we hear when we go out to work with teams and in organizations to the test and put ourselves a little bit to the test. Another big part of this is really about reconnecting with nature as a central stakeholder in our work. And I know Peter Hawkins always liked to say that nature is oftentimes the forgotten stakeholder that's not in the room, and that a lot of our approach to business neglects factoring in the larger ecosystem that we're all a part of. And so part of this voyage is also about spending significant time where nature's not in the background, but nature's in the foreground, where nature is a bit more dominant than we are, and really, putting nature into the equation. And that was, a real, I think, a wonderful aspect of the last voyage we were on, was the role of nature when it was beautiful and sunny out versus when it was really windy and wavy. That added a different kind of element. Even at the end of the day and beginning of the day, we would have pods of dolphins showing up. And so I think there was like an attunement with the environment that for many on the boat took a few days to get into. A real quick, brief story. We didn't have cell phone coverage after about a day into the trip, but it was striking to see people checking their phones for like 3 or 4 days on that voyage. That was a 2-week voyage, but it took people literally 3 days to stop looking at their telephones, even when there was no hope of any cell phone signal. It was just a real sign of how we're so, technology enabled and connected to the, the technological world, and how it took a little while for people to just start letting go of their phones. Also, people ask like, wow, you're going for 10 days or 2 weeks. That's a really long time. We're used to going to programs that are 2 days in nature. I don't know about you, but as somebody who's been in organization development and learning, I remember the glory days when I used to do 3-day programs or 5-day programs, and it's slowly been ratcheting back, right? From 5 days to 3 days to 2 days to 1 day. When I finally left doing training, I think we were down to 90-minute webinars, series of webinars, which we were doing content which previously we would spend days on. So we're kind of going against the trend here and really trying to stretch out time to allow for serious reflection, individual and collective transformation. So while you'll hear about shortly, there are going to be set pieces and times during the program where we're going to be engaging and learning together. We're also trying to create ample space for people to have time to just be and not pack from start to finish, during the program with, completely designed sessions all day long and evening for 10 days. In some of our design sessions, we spoke a little bit about this ship, which is a 1920s herring schooner that was retrofitted to be a sail training vessel. But this ship was designed to be really fast in terms of 1920 standards. And so it would go to the North Sea to bring the catch of herring back really quickly. And so in our conversations, and this was something that Peter Hawkins shared with, is we want to go out together, not just have a great learning adventure, but what is it that we're bringing back? What's the catch that we are going to bring back as a learning community to bring back to share with the professions, the profession of team development and team coaching, and or with the broader world? Maybe that's about the environment. Maybe it's about, something broader about our, challenges of the 8 billion or so people that live on our planet, the SDG goals that the United Nations puts out about the major challenges of the world. So that's going to be a fun part, just to really look at what emerges on this voyage that we can't predict, we can't control, and to really discover that a bit. And then the final one is to, I think one is a little bit dear to my heart, is to really look at, as people in the field of team development and team coaching, how can we shape the way we go about learning in this field? And while webinars, training workshops, traditional conferences and hotels or conference centers are wonderful formats of learning, are there other ways of helping us evolve as a field to really do cross-disciplinary work, to really explore our different models, see where they're complementary, where maybe they don't fit together, but put all that to the test and, do that in service of further advancing our field and, really challenging ourselves to step up as a community of teams, as a large team of teams, to evolve our field. So those are a couple of big picture reasons to put out here why we're going on this voyage. But I'd love to hear from Ruth, from Gabe, from Carissa, for all of you as faculty of the program. What else would you like to share about what's bringing you onto this voyage? Maybe a little bit about what you're bringing, what you hope to offer in terms of your areas of expertise, but also what it is you're hoping to learn from this voyage and be a part of.
Thank you, Chris.
Go first, Ruth?
Yeah. Sure. This is Ruth Gabe speaking. Hi, everybody. Looking forward very much to this adventure. I think my initial reason for wanting to join the next one after hearing Krista and Kim talk about it is exactly the spirit of inventiveness that they brought to the previous one, and my feeling that that if we did it intentionally and invited a set of colleagues that really are coming in the spirit of inventiveness about the art of creating conditions for brilliant collaboration, that we really could do something amazing. So there's a lot about my personal learning, of course, that I'm moved by here, just the chance to work with this faculty team and also you as participants that bring such original perspectives and a wide range of experience. I think there's a high probability we can create conditions so the whole is going to be much greater than the sum of its parts, and that we can really advance the field of team coaching. What I bring to the conversation is my focus, my research, some of the science of what Krista and I have come to call structural coaching, which is working with teams and with team leaders to create the conditions, the design conditions that drive effective collaboration and ultimately team effectiveness. And I have a high degree of confidence in the science, and what I really want to explore more deeply with all of you is the art, because those conditions come to life in very different ways for very different kinds of teams and collaborations, and we will have so many different ones to draw upon. There's us as a group of participants, there's the team of us 5 who are the faculty. I see us as having the role of creating the scaffolding for great collaboration to happen. There's also the sailing team, and I want to say something about that team of extraordinary sailors in just a moment. And then there is the larger collaboration in the field of team effectiveness. So bottom line, I think what is a big deal for me is I really do love the idea that nature is one of our stakeholders. I believe deeply, and I've had this conversation with Krista, that the really important problems and the really important aspirations of humanity are going to be solved by brilliant collaboration and by people coming together voluntarily across organizations and across boundaries to do that. So climate change, the environment's health are no one organization's responsibility. It is going to require distributed leadership and great collaboration, which is a real frontier in thinking and practice about collaboration. And I was just thinking about the sailing team as a pretty extraordinary example example, not of a hierarchy, but of really flexible distributed leadership. And I see them as a group that we can learn from and maybe do some practice ourselves in the sailing of the ship and as in working together around really creating healthy self-governing groups to do that kind of great distributed leadership. So those are some of the things that I'm inspired by and that I hope to bring to this journey, and I look forward to hearing more from all of you about what's sort of bringing you to this shared work as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Ruth. Gabe, do you want to pick it up from there? Share a little bit about what's bringing you onto the voyage?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things are resonating with what Ruth just shared, but I think personally, hoping to learn, just expecting to learn from everyone on the ship, which is the participants, and understanding what people are doing within their own practice. It's a big world out there. Even the small number of folks that I interact with, it's only a small sliver of what people are really doing with individual coaching and team coaching. So to be able to have some extended time with really deep world-class practitioners and do that sharing, I think is going to spark to what I think I'm really looking to do is experiment, which is integrate the things that I've seen and I've sort of brought to my own coaching practice with other people as well. And I want to do it on the ship. Let's figure out what gifts and what experiences people have on there, and we can turn it into something as structured or unstructured activity, but that is the place to do it. As far as what I bring, for my own practice, it's interesting the beliefs and values of teaming and the culture of teaming at scale at organizations is something that I think I've dedicated a lot of my career to, and also really. With that, the value of teams as respecting individuals' autonomy, but for a shared purpose, and bringing that to the ship and participants in the context of team of teams, which is really the problems of the world are going to be solved by teams, and then the really, really big ones are going to be solved by multiple teams that are trying to share commit themselves to this goal that cannot even be solved by one single team. And so empowering autonomous teams, we probably heard that as a buzzword, through our coaching circles, but it's something that I truly believe, and I've seen it happen. We can make it happen. And that really is unlocking the creative potential and people's contributions at scale is really what I'm looking forward to sharing with other folks. And then as far as respecting our stakeholder, which is the environment, another thing that we deal with and help other coaches and our clients deal with is uncertainty. And so having being in an environment of uncertainty is how like you said before, Krister, we're usually constrained to our offices, but yet there's a ton of uncertainty in there. Yet we're not yet learning how to deal with that uncertainty in a really constructive way. We're trying to enforce more control over systems, over uncertain systems, and all that does is make it worse. So understanding the uncertainties in our world and how to actually leverage the uncertainty and really bring something from ourselves out of that in a positive way, I think is another thing that I'm looking forward to sharing with and helping that emerge from the participants as well as the faculty.
I think, Gabe, just to throw in a little bonus there from your perspective, we might be able to certify folks in Team Kanban on the voyage. Is that possibility? Yeah.
Yes, and I think that's the other for me.
For those of you who want certifications or want that kind of stuff. So there's.
I will just say the other thing that I think is, from my perspective, I spend a lot of my time focusing on work teams and teams of work teams at scale. This is where the work gets done. So acknowledging that there's a connection between the decisions and the feelings that people are having at other levels of organization are actually impacting thousands and tens of thousands of workers in your organization. So what can we do to inform those others with authority and influence the organization that are actually going to impact the well-being and the autonomy and the creativity of pretty much 99% of your organization. I think that's where I have the most passion. So bringing something like Kanban and other agile ways of thinking to the work, I think is really the next sort of the next horizon of team coaching from my perspective.
Awesome. Chris, I would love to get your voice in. I think you may be at, is it Heathrow Airport, or where do we find you today?
I am. I'm at Terminal 2 Heathrow. So because
You're like a reporter in the fields, you know.
I am. And you know that it's on that theme that I'll start, because I absolutely echo what Ruth and Gabe have shared. Very, very much about purpose and legacy, especially that if we can allow ourselves to experiment, be in nature as a way of really helping to harness what the community that we can create to address the ecological crisis and leadership crisis that we see in the world. That I definitely echo all of that. What I'm really interested in, going back to storytelling, is as somebody who's taking over the Team Coaching Zone podcast, I really would love to capture our story and snippets of stories and make sure that our voice is shared. That's definitely something that I'm interested in, because I know storytelling really can help people to open up just new horizons in a way that, of course, film does. So the story is there. And I bring sort of 20 plus years of experience helping teams to communicate effectively, helping leaders to communicate effectively, helping connect stakeholders together in a way that is compelling and inspiring. I'm very interested in also the individual to collective leadership. So how do we individually do from me to we, or from I to we, and build that sort of we queue. So that's something else that I'm very interested in, and very curious to watch that. Those are two definite things that I'm very interested in. I'm conscious that it might be very noisy in the back, so I don't want to
hear anything. You're coming through crystal clear.
Okay, super. Then, I mean, I was talking to Peter about the sustainability development goals and the whole idea, and going back to this whole point of purpose and legacy. Could we build something and become a community where we can build a legacy and link it to a bigger purpose? That's really what I'm really interested to see. What can we invent together? What wants to happen? What wants to emerge? And I think everything else has been said. So just a huge amount of curiosity, and I'm delighted to be part of the faculty.
Cool. Well, I wanted to add Peter's voice to this. As mentioned, he sent this in advance. So he said, greetings to everyone from Peter Hawkins, currently flying somewhere in the air between London and Sydney, probably over Indonesia as we speak. Great to be part of this crew, and a great opportunity for experienced team leaders and team coaches to come on board and move forward the whole team development field. Delighted to be working with Ruth, Gabe, Krista, Carissa, and Pim, all pioneers in the team development world, and hope to meet you all on board La Os Goa, I think, which means let's go in Norwegian. And there's a YouTube video down here, which if you want to watch it, or I can play it at the end, is a band that's singing this song, Let's Go. Create a little bit of feeling maybe for the spirit of the trip. So that's kind of a little bit about the why of the trip. And some of you already had put some questions in the chat window around, what are we going to be actually doing on the boat? So fair enough question. So we kind of break this down into 4 areas. So the first one has to do with, the top of this Venn diagram, really about exploring approaches to teams, team coaching and leadership. So this is going to be about learning, being part of a team. So you're going to be broken up into a team, and then scaffolded together into a team of teams and linked up to then, the captain and crew of this ship. And we want to experiment with these bodies of knowledge about teams, learning about the 6 conditions for team effectiveness, about systemic team coaching, some of the agile principles and practices, also exploring what Gabe was alluding to earlier. How do we actually not only be an effective individual team, but a team of teams? So looking at the spaces in between teams and a group of teams trying to align together. One of the big emphases of the first voyage was around embodiment. So we did a lot of work around getting out of our heads and really getting more in touch with our bodies and using our full body, thinking of the body as a brain, all of those capabilities that we have. So we did some work around that in the last voyage. And as Krista was saying, really tapping into this challenge of moving from individual to collective leadership. And I know that's something that you write about in your book, Ruth, and Peter Hawkins writes about in his works and others. But this tension between the individual role of leadership, but also the collective leadership. So something we'll be practicing together. So you can expect some, set pieces in the morning for a couple of hours where we're going to be engaging in some experiential learning around these models and frameworks. We're going to be challenging, Ruth and Peter to pair up and run a session together, Gabe and Ruth, Gabe and Peter, Carissa and Peter, et cetera, just to really start to force the cross-school or cross-disciplinary collaboration around the frameworks. Also to say that the people coming on the boat are typically very experienced, either as team coaches or coaches, facilitators, learning professionals. We also get a handful of leaders in transition who have led real teams. And so there's, a body of wisdom in the group. So we want to really create space to bring that forward. One of you asked about the sailing component. So yes, indeed, we will be using the sailing on the ship. It's not just being out on a boat, but we want to actually see if we can learn as a team by 5 to 7 days in together to learn how to sail the boat as a team of teams. So we're going to have a real objective, which is as a group of 26 people, can we actually sail the boat for a specified period of time, 24 hours, for example. Obviously, there's a professional captain and crew there that are going to be, ensuring safety. So all of this is done within the standards of safety that you would expect or need to. But interestingly, one of the things the youth learn how to do on the transatlantic voyage, they have 30 days to do this, is they learn all the tasks about hoisting sails, about navigation, and just working with all the things that are needing to happen in adjusting the boat, even cooking the meals and doing all that kind of stuff. They learn how to do that on their voyage across the Atlantic. So I think if the youth can do it, maybe we could be up to the task of learning how to sail this big ship. Having been on the boat before, and I didn't have any serious open ocean sailing experience when I went on to the last program. There was a lot to learn. When you hoist a sail on a ship this size, you don't feel the boat suddenly pivot like you do on a smaller ship. So a lot of the interventions you make, you don't feel the immediate response of a boat that size. Even when you turn the wheel to turn direction, the boat doesn't pivot on a dime. It actually takes a while for that, to start to turn direction. So there's all kinds of things to learn, but what we're going to do is really break down a set of sailing tasks, and in your teams, give you opportunities to practice them, learn them. And then by the end of the 7 days, we'll get an assessment of your team's capabilities around these various tasks. Doing night watch, for example, one of the things I most enjoyed was being out on the deck in the middle of the night, on night watch for 4 hours in the stars. And, it was really amazing. So there will be a sailing component to this. Again, if you're experienced in sailing, wonderful. If you're not, that's fine too. We also adapt to different fitness levels. So some people may not have the fitness to hoist sails or to climb up into the rigging. There's safe ways of doing all that. And, you have to go up into the rigging if you want to go up with one of the crew and you're harnessed in and all these kind of safety procedures, which we'll learn about. But it's all within your skill level. And the beauty of having a team of teams on the boat is we will work with the diversity of abilities and, skills on the boat. And that'll be something we can discover. And I know, Gabe, you have some pretty cool exercises around discovering the skill sets we think we may need and figuring out how to form teams around the skill sets that we have. So we'll be doing that. Part of this time will also be for you to reflect on your life journey, to have some free space to reflect in the afternoons and the evenings, and also to give and receive coaching. So if you would like to get some coaching during this voyage, you'll have that opportunity. So we're going to create ample opportunity for individual coaching. We had a number of people on the last voyage who were in transition states, leaving corporations or companies and moving into life after their next stage of their life in terms of career. And so being on the boat can really afford you an opportunity to dream, think about where you are in your life, where you are in your career, and get some reflection on that. And then the final element here is around the emergent discovery of what is it that we are learning together collectively about our field, about the environment that we want to bring back together. And that's a little bit of a discovery of what this voyage will unearth for us that we can't control, we can't predict, but a joint discovery. So it's not just a great learning adventure for those of us on it, but we come back with a broader message. So that's a little bit about the what. I wanted to share just a few more details. I mentioned this ship. It's called the Wheel de Swan. And again, it's a Dutch herring schooner. Its home port is in the Netherlands, but these ships are very costly to keep at dock, so they're typically on the move. And I'm not sure where the boat is right now, but it may actually be in the Caribbean or starting its journey back from the Caribbean. Again, it was a ship built in the 1920s. It was retrofitted as a sail training vessel, and it's about 70 meters long, 210 feet, and has been redesigned to be a sail training vessel. It's important to emphasize that this is not a cruise, so it's not like a luxury thing where you get your own cabin and, it's all lux. You're actually in the hold of the ship. You have bunks, so you have some privacy, but you're actually in, an open area. And it was fun on the last journey. We interviewed people in advance about what they were most concerned about. The number one thing that topped the list was being in close quarters with people for that long time. The last voyage was 15 days. This one will be a little bit shorter. There are places on the boat, I will tell you, where you can find some privacy. So you can always find a place, if you're an introvert like me, where you like to be with people, but you need to go be alone for an hour. There are definitely places you can find on the ship to do that. But that was one of the big questions. The other one was around seasickness, was the other big question that came up. It turned out after that trip, being in close quarters was reported not to be such a challenge, although that was a big fear of participants coming in. There was some seasickness on the last trip. We were about 7 days in, 300 miles off the coast of France, out in the Bay of Biscay, and it got a bit wavy. And one of the funny stories is we could really feel the boat rocking that day when we woke up. And so I put all my foul weather gear on, thinking I was going to go up to the deck and it was going to be really stormy. It was super windy. The boat was kind of on its side. We were maxing out the speed of the boat, which is about 15 knots. But it was a glorious day for sailing. But the participants came to call that day the day of the storm. So it wasn't a storm. It was beautifully, brilliant, sunny and windy and wavy, perfect for sailing. We were flying across the bay, making record time. Our boat won, by the way. We were part of a race of tall ships in different classes, and our boat won our size class. I like to joke, not in small measure, of course, due to our efforts, but that's a little bit of a joke. I think the captain and crew were mainly accountable for our performance. But anyway, so that day we did have a number of participants getting seasick, and that really impacted people differently. Some people took some medication and bounced back very quickly. Others decided to bear it out and had a pretty miserable, number of hours. But that was one day out of the 15 we were on. Now, we were very far offshore, so that I think the conditions off Norway will probably be will be lighter. But again, it's the ocean, so you never know. So, there are other tips and things around things that can help you prevent seasickness or manage it more. Some of those are about fitness, medication. My trick was to stay moving and active on the deck for the whole day. So I just kept moving and was engaged and, was fine. We had an 80-year-old woman, one of the grandmothers of the crew on the ship, and she did fine the whole voyage, didn't get seasick. And so I think sometimes people if their first time being out on a boat, they're overly concerned about that. But it's definitely something that can happen on a ship, and there's some ways to manage that. So again, just to mention a little bit about the itinerary, we are going to be 26 participants in our program. So we're going to have the ship to ourselves. We've bought out the whole boat for this voyage. There'll be roughly 14 captain and crew on the ship. Some of those are more trained. Some of them are more junior people who are there for cleaning and, other, logistical kind of duties. And, they're just a great model of team. So I think you're going to learn a lot just by seeing the captain and crew working as a tight, team of people. And that's always fun to see. We're going to board the ship in Fredrikstad in Norway on July 13th. And, we'll do some orientation. There'll be some safety briefings. We're going to do some webinar online orientation before the voyage as well, so we can start forming as the group. There'll be, celebrations in the port there in Fredrikstad that day. And then the ships will leave. We're going to be in company with other ships. This is part of the tall ships races. So there's a number of tall ships that are going to be part of this journey. This voyage is not going to be a racing part of the journey. However, some of the other legs of the journey, the ships are actually racing. So this is not going to be a racing leg, but we will be in company with other tall ships of different sizes. And, you'll get to go and check some of those out, possibly even board them. We boarded a few of the other tall ships on the last voyage, and that was really cool to see our boat in comparison to some of the other boats, bigger and smaller. And so there'll be a parade of tall ships. I think there's fireworks the night before on the 13th, and then the boats will go out together in a parade of ships leaving on the 14th. And then, we're going to make our way around the tip of Norway, and, we're going to get to see what's out there, the fjords. I think it's going to be some beautiful nature and scenery. So I think that'll be great to take part of. This is going to be in July, so I expect the voyage to be warmer than our trip. We were in April from England to Portugal in the last voyage, and it was, it was warm at some moments during the day. We definitely had some cold times as well. And then we'll be arriving 1 to 2 days early in Bergen. So the boat will pull in, and you'll be able to leave early if you want to stick around and stay on the boat for a day or two and just disengage from the experience, go check out the town, go hiking, stuff like that. We'll have those opportunities. Based on the last trip, we were actually 3 days early, and we won our race, and then we went and dropped anchor in a Portuguese fishing village, and we spent a couple of days there, and it was wonderful just being back on land and hiking and going and having great meals together and having a few days just to reflect on the voyage and harvest all the learnings and disengage from that experience. So it's not going to be 10 full days of sailing, probably more like 7 or 8 actually sailing, and then a day on the boat and on the end. So, so there's going to be structure to the trip, but it's not a cookie cutter type of experience that's super designed. There's design to it, but there's room for along the way, making adjustments, and depending on the conditions of the sailing and all that, we will make adjustments as we move along. I thought I'd share just a few of the pictures from the last trip. And for my colleague Pim and I and Eric, who you can see in the upper right-hand corner, they're coaching someone. Pim had the most sailing experience for us as facilitators, but none of us had been leading a learning program out on a ship for 2 weeks where we were also novices in that kind of sailing. And so I think for me, it was a wonderful experience just to put myself out of my comfort zone. I think the big thing I took away from the 2 weeks was really about learning to be more nimble and agile and facilitating in the moment, working when you're not totally prepared, and working in the here and now, and just adjusting and, being present to what's the opportunities and challenges unfolding in the moment. So you can see some, great little pictures here along the way. We actually had halfway through the trip, you can see Pim and I down there in the third row down in pirate costumes. We actually had a party in the middle of the ocean one day. So, if you had been on a helicopter flying over this ship out in the middle of the ocean, you would have seen 30 people all dressed up in costumes having a little party out there. So that was fun. It turns out that there's no alcohol allowed when the boat is sailing in port. There's an allowance for alcohol and things like that. But once the boat is underway, you're not allowed to have those kinds of things. So this was just a fun dance party. We all had pirate costumes on and just had a good time together. So just a couple of pictures from the last. Some people got into yoga in the mornings and were doing yoga on the deck. Climbing up into the rigging and all that. So I wanted to just sort of start to bring this session down to a close to share why we named this program the Nautilus Experience. And so this is something that emerged. We actually, the first voyage, we called it Spread Your Wings. So Wheel the Swan is, like the wild swan. It has an image of a bird. So we called that voyage the Spread Your Wings voyage. But when we reached Portugal in the last trip, we had a couple of days, like I mentioned, in the Portuguese fishing village. Sesimbra was the name of the town. It's a lovely place. And so Pim and I took a hike up to one of these medieval castles. And we climbed up this mountain, and we were overlooking the fishing village in this castle. And we found a little cafe, and we were having some, water and sodas and things there, and just getting some refreshment from our hike. We were pretty hot at this point. And we were sitting in this beautiful environment, and we said, we need to come up with a name for this voyage, for this experience. And as we were talking, we were throwing around ideas. And one of the things that had emerged when we were sailing together was starting to really tap into what nature was giving us as opportunities to use for coaching. So shifts in the weather, the dolphins showing up. And so we became pretty attuned to the environment. when we're on the boat and using nature as a guide for moments when we needed some sense of direction or, a pivot in what was happening in the learning groups and such. And so we started to really draw on that, and Pim and I weren't coming up with anything. So Pim said, let me do a quantum flirt. And I'm just going to put out to the universe to nature, we need some guidance on what to call this program. And literally within 30 seconds of his making this thing, what he calls a quantum flirt, out to the universe, I suddenly saw across a field a statue of this Nautilus spiral, which is pictured here in this image. So I took this with my cell phone, and it was just this random thing sitting in the middle of a field was this Nautilus sculpture. And so we went over and checked this image out, and I just started looking online more about Nautilus, and these are amazing creatures, but also about the science behind them, the mathematics around Nautilus spirals, and all of these things. And so we thought it'd be a really great metaphor for looking at the learning journey, starting at the center, but slowly working your way out in a nonlinear fashion around the natural journey of growth and, emergence that happens in systems. And we thought that would be a really great metaphor, because not only is it nautical in the sense of ships and the ocean and all that, but it also is a great metaphor for something that's very ancient, but also timeless, about how growth occurs and that process of spiral emergence and organic growth. So that's why we came up with the name of the Nautilus experience. So that's a little bit about the origins of the program. If you're interested to learn more and apply, you can go onto our site at teamcoachingzone.com/Nautilus. There's some other videos on there, podcasts from the last voyage, more pictures of the boat, just more information. There's a little PDF download. And we are asking people to apply for this program. So we just want to make sure it's a good fit for you and for us if you're interested. So it's a very just brief couple question application, and we'll be following up with a phone call to connect with you if you're interested to learn more about this voyage. And if this is up your alley, we'd love to see you on the boat. Again, we mentioned there are 13 spots left on the boat, and we're looking to fill those pretty soon. So hope you will be joining us. Wanted to give this an opportunity for Ruth, for Gabe, if Chris is still here, if there's anything you guys else want to share here, or if there's any questions we have from those of you on the call. And I'll just check the chat window out here if there's anything else that you would like questions around.
So I just wanted to say that I think in a lot of regards, almost all the regards, as one of the trip guides, I mean, we're all on equal footing here. None of us have been on this boat before. Krister and Pim have the most experience, so we're learning right next to you, and that's sort of the appeal of this, right? Is to really make the learning in parallel with everybody.
Yeah, I certainly echo that, and I just find myself thinking that this also will be I think this will also be an adventure in learning some things about courage.
Perhaps indeed. Thanks for sharing that. Anything else to add, Carissa? You're mute. You need to unmute.
Just that I think the courage point that, certainly I don't know about everybody else, but I see so much fear in organizations. And if we can learn to harness our fear and work out, how to be brave in these extraordinary times, so that's definitely something I would add. And just that I really hope to see as many people who are on this call with us. It's a really unique journey, and to thank you, Krista, and Pim, for putting it out there and inviting us all on.
Yeah, well, it's a funny story. In the last one, we came up with the idea, and then 6 months later, we went to Rotterdam and we worked with the captain and crew and took them through a team formation session. And we experimented with an embodiment model, which we've called the 5 Knowledge Centers, which we've published and some of you may be familiar with. And we had an amazing experience with the captain and crew. And then after that, we decided in January of 2017, we were going to do this trip, but we only had 4 months to make it happen. And so we decided to become an agile team and we worked in sprints using a lot of the agile, Scrum principles. We had a daily stand-up call every day, virtual, and within a month we recruited the participants, we secured the boat, we designed as much of the program as we wanted to design, and then 4 months later we found ourselves on the boat. So it's a great story of becoming a team to accomplish something that we couldn't do separately under such a short period of time. But then, being out on the boat together with the participants, I think created for everybody, including us, an experience that none of us had before on that scale and level. And, created great opportunities, great connections and relationships, and challenges as well in terms of, the group dynamics of being together once the initial formation phase is over and all the safety and all that. We've created that. Then the challenging part of learning together as a group, and those things can emerge, and they may or may not, depends on the group, but all those kind of group dynamics and group relations things can surface, and that creates really rich learning. So super excited about what these kind of voyages can bring to our learning, and testing ourselves a little bit around that. So there's definitely a lot of humility and humbling that happens around what you think and even if you have 20 years of experience, I think there's moments to learn something new about yourself, and 20, 30, 40 years, whatever you have in terms of your skills and experience around being in something that's not pre-designed of how it's going to all play out. So some other things on here. So licensed sailors, I mean, the obviously the captain and crew are professionals in that sense. A number of us have, sailing experience and different kinds of certifications. But if you have smaller boat type of certification, it's not going to, maybe it'll help you a little bit just feeling comfortable on the ship. But a lot of the skill, it's very different scale with a larger ship like that than if you have a smaller sailing certifications. But, it still may be useful. Bringing that onto the boat together. But again, you don't need to have any experience sailing to come on this voyage. So in terms of the day, I think you want to ideally arrive there on the 13th. And in terms of when you go back, it's probably safe the day before we arrive. If you want to leave that day in the evening, I think it's on the 22nd. The safest would be the 23rd. So if you're looking to book flights for that, so we may be able to stop and pick you up along the way, or if you get an emergency and you need to leave the ship, we'll be able to drop you off somewhere along the way. About smoking, I think you can smoke out on the ship, on the deck. Probably if you smoke down in the hold, your shipmates are not going to be too happy with you, but there are places where you could be smoking outside, I'm sure. And I don't think we have a risk of burning down the boat, but anyways, we won't go there. So, all right. So I'm just aware we are just a few minutes out here from the hour. So I want to thank you all for that. Prefer non-smoking. Yes, indeed. What other questions, comments, anything else you want to know from the last trip to close out this experience? Again, we are recording the session. I'm going to be sending it out to all the participants who registered and couldn't come to the live session today. So we'll be making this available if people want to watch this or share it with any of their colleagues.
Hey, Krister.
Yo.
I'm going to ask some obvious questions then. We're to start rolling here. Like, how much stuff could I bring? Like, what's an acceptable amount, a reasonable, like, what's it look like? Does it look like a roll-on? Does it look like a duffel bag? Thinking of like other things I would bring.
We'll deal with all these kind of logistical questions, but good question to tackle now. Typically, it's better to have a duffel bag. You don't want a roll-on hard bag because it just not fit well. So they don't allow that. So you're going to want to bring a duffel bag. I found that I brought 5 times the amount of clothing I needed from the last time. There is a washer and dryer on the boat, so you can get your clothes washed. You don't really need, a whole lot of clothing, actually. So just like when you go on business trips, you probably have the experience of how much clothes do you really need versus what you pack. So I would definitely just take that to heart. Clothing that's fit for being in that kind of environment. But you don't, we had folks on the boat who had 0 sailing gear in terms of coats, raincoats and boots and all that. Some of us were rigged out with way more gear than we needed, that we never even used because the conditions were such. But we also did a lot of borrowing and swapping of things between members of the team. So, but we'll give you a recommended list of things. And but we had folks showing up in jean jackets and jeans and sneakers, and they did okay with that. You know, some of that's going to be a function of the weather. So, you know, pack at your own risk in terms of being overly minimalist. But
Great.
Yeah, but duffel bags for sure, because it just makes it easier to, you know, store. Yeah, good question.
So Krista, you were saying you were going to send us out logistical information. Just a heads up on around when and.
Yeah, I think we'll probably do the first orientation webinar late April,
Okay.
Early May, so a couple months out, and you know, hopefully by that point we have the ship filled out, and you know, people, you know, those of you who have applied already, or if you have questions, you know, feel free to reach out to us sooner. But we'll do 1 or 2 webinars, probably one that'll be more around logistics and one around just starting the formation and learning about each other a bit more, and you know, we'll do those prior to the joining up in Norway.
And I think, and Krista, just one last thing, which is probably obvious, but we're ideally looking for a balance between women and men.
Yeah.
And all age groups. You know, we want that diversity on the team.
Yeah, I will say we were heavily skewed towards male on the last trip. We had, I think, 2 or 3 women in our learning group. We had a number of women in the captain and crew, so they're pretty diverse in terms of gender and nationality, the captain and crew. So we had a mix of Dutch, Portuguese, UK on that crew. So there definitely will be women on the boat. I think we have, with the 2 of you, Ruth and Carissa, we have a couple there, and a couple who have applied already are female. So I think there'll be a handful of women for sure, but would love to be 50-50. I don't know if we'll get 50 or 50, but we'll encourage as many women to apply as possible, because it has historically with only one voyage, prior voyage, it's been more attracting males than females on the balance. But yeah, sleeping bags. Yeah, sleeping bag is helpful to have on the boat. It's pretty warm in there, so.
Can you hear me, Krista?
Yes, I can. Hi, Sean.
Hi. Hi again, Carissa. We've already spoken. I was just wondering, sort of domestic stuff, how many toilets are there on this boat? Multiple
toilets, multiple showers.
Right.
Yeah, and you know, the crew does a really good job of keeping it really clean and everything. Yeah. But again, it's not luxe conditions, but
no, it's not that it's numbers that I was worried about. Just
yeah.
enough.
Exactly. Yeah. No, there's multiple restrooms. Some are I think gendered also. So if I remember, I can't quite remember, but yeah, there's multiple places.
Okay, great.
Do what you need to do to take care of yourself on the ship.
Okay.
And I have to say, you know, the food was exceptional. So they take food really seriously, because you're out on the ocean. You need to stay hydrated and fed. And so you burn a lot of calories that you normally don't burn when you're on land, you know. So people really look forward to the meals. They had an incredible chef. And it was not fun in a joking way, but it was interesting to go down to the galley to watch the chef working when the boat was really rocking back and forth, and how everything was tied down, and, you know, how he was able to really put on these great meals for all of us. And, you know, we would chip in to help with the cleanup and stuff like that. So. Yeah. Yes, and so do you want to say more about the grog, Ruth?
That was a tongue-in-cheek remark. I mean, that's how you keep sailors happy on the high seas, which is your daily dose of. I believe it was mostly rum.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you need to partake of that, you'll have to do that in port, or I won't say more to that. Maybe there's other ways you'll figure that out. So.
Got it.
Yeah. Cool. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining today. We're just a couple minutes over from the start. And again, thank you, David, for the feedback on the session. And looking forward to seeing you there too, David, on the boat. And great. So feel free to reach out if you need to. And we'll make this out. I'm going to send out a link to the replay of this session, and hope to see you in July if you're going to join us. And if not, hopefully you took away few thoughts or insights just to think about today for yourself. And also feel free to share about this trip with your colleagues out there.
Great.
Thanks everyone.
You all.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, so we can set up calls if you want to. Just stop recording here.